Yes, happy Sunday.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. I am here today with Renata. We are talking all about inclusive leadership. This is going to be so much fun. Listen, for those of you that do not know me, I am the host here at Her Talk Show. Always lots of fun happening here. Amazing conversations. If you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. What you waiting for? These podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life and business. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
All right, peeps, if you are listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can drop you some love in the comments. We have had over 600 women grace this stage. We are adding another one to the list today. Ranada Samuel is a culture, talent, and people leader focused on change management and organizational development to retain top talent. Her work includes internal mobility, DEIB, and the employee design experience. What? As she works closely with learning and development and talent management. She facilitates the change management process with organizations as they evolve their human capital strategy. Her project management team is specifically responsible for retention and attrition metrics. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So happy to be here with you and spend time with your wonderful community.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for taking some time to hang out with us. We are talking about leadership, and not just any type of leadership, inclusive leadership. Before we jump in, I would love to know why this realm. How are we so experienced or knowledgeable in this realm?
Yes. Well, I'll give a Cliff Note version of me and my background and all those good things. Undergrad in psychology, master's in urban planning and public policy, done a lot of work in community and economic development, transitioned over into HR, really got my teeth wet and developed in talent acquisition. But, it's not just about bringing in great talent into the organization. You have to retain them, you have to train them, you have to grow them so that they can be the best they can be in the organization. And so through all of that experience and things of that nature, that's where I am today. Culture, talent, people leader. And it's about getting the work done in a great way that's beneficial to the company, the people we serve, and our employees. So that's my wheelhouse, and it's so needed. It's so needed in this time and day.
I bet. What's the biggest issue that you're seeing within this arena?
Yeah, the biggest issue is when we talk about things such as culture or DEIB or employee engagement, no one really knows where does it sit. Is it a talent acquisition thing? Is it a talent management thing? Is it a learning and development thing? The reality of it is, it's all inclusive. It's cross-functional throughout the organization. So depending on the size of your organization, you look at it through a different lens. So in my corporate experience, I've worked with organizations that have had 5,000 plus seats. So they tend to have, a larger footprint as it comes to human capital to try to pull some resources together. But even though they have that large footprint, once again, it's very territorial. How do we get a foothold on it, come up with the action plan, and then take action? Then in my consulting business, I work with smaller companies with anywhere between 2 to 250 employees. They tend to have a very small HR function, maybe 1 to 4 people. They just don't have the bandwidth to tackle some of these things because they're trying to deal with the standard, benefits, I-9 forms, things of that nature. So depending on the type of organization that you sit in, the lens that you look at, the challenge is different, but nevertheless, it's still a challenge and the work needs to be done.
Yeah, 100%. What would you say is you mentioned action plan. What is just a general action plan that a company can look into or step into when it comes to inclusive leadership?
So I'm a firm believer in the work that we do needs to be tied back to the business. So when we talk about inclusive leadership, we don't want to just go out and buy a manual. We don't just want to go out and do what company XYZ did because it worked well for company XYZ. Figure out what you're doing as an organization and where you're going, what your goals are. You truly need a tailored plan for your organization so that the things that you're asking your leaders and employees to do make sense. It's working in tandem with the goals that they have. If not, it's going to be like an add-on, an afterthought. And we all know those add-ons, those afterthoughts, when time gets tough and pressure comes on, it falls off the plate and it isn't done. So if you want something that's going to be sustainable and grow as the business grows, tie it back to business initiatives.
For those that are maybe just, I shouldn't even say this, for businesses who are listening, owners, management who's listening, who maybe doesn't even know what inclusive leadership is. Can we kind of start with the basics of what does inclusive leadership even mean?
Absolutely. So it's important, once again, to operationally define inclusive leadership for your organization. So what it means for your organization versus another will vary. But a general overview definition, when we talk about inclusive leadership, we're talking about leadership that takes into consideration the diversity of thought, the diversity of perspectives, the diversity of type of work that's coming in to the organization, willing to capitalize and utilize that to move the organization forward. It's not my way or the highway. As an inclusive leader, you want to make sure you're fully utilizing all of your human capital, putting it together, doing the best you can with it, and then driving the initiatives forward.
I think you talk a lot about employee design experience. This just sounds cool. Is it as cool as it sounds, or is it not? What is it?
Well, for me, I think it's super cool, but I'm the HR lady, I think it's super cool. So woo, bring out the streamers. But yeah, so when we come up with business plans, initiatives, our operating procedures, things of that nature, a lot of times these things look great on paper and it makes a lot of sense. But if you're an employee and you're actually going through that process, what does it feel like? What does it look like to go through that process? So here are some examples. Talked about internal mobility. So if you have a process within your organization that your employee, well, they have to be in the role 12 months before they can apply. They have to get their manager's position before they even can apply for the role, or they have to get their manager's recommendation before they can apply. All of these various different role blocks associated with an employee applying for an internal role within the organization. Well, if you are a employee first, people first organization, do those policies contradict and prevent your employee from moving forward and applying and causing roadblocks and things of that nature? There might be some things that are going on with management or, talent hoarding or things of that nature that could prevent a great employee from staying with the organization, applying for another role within the company and moving forward. Now, when you think about your external talent, they don't have to jump through any of those hoops to apply. So when we talk about the employee design experience, in this example, as it relates to internals applying, make sure your policies and procedures are aligned to what you want. Do you want to retain your great talent and move them forward? Another example, benefits and administration and things of that nature, reaching out to HR. Are you in an organization where someone has to submit a ticket, they send it over to the portal, and then someone responds to the portal, to the request in the portal, and then they have to respond back, and you're going back and forth, and all these weird things are going on, and the person just wants to update their mailing address, or they just want to update their marital status or something of that nature. What is the employee design experience? What does it look like for an employee to go through these process procedures that you created in your business operations?
Ooh, yeah. The internal flow, so important. I really like this word or phrase that you said with roadblocks,
Mhm.
because I can distinctively remember several roadblocks of different natures within different organizations that I was in, where I'm almost sitting back and I'm like, I could do this way better, like as an employee, because of roadblocks that are happening. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what the top one or two roadblocks are that you see within organizations that maybe management needs to be more cognizant of, that maybe they're just not seeing?
Absolutely. So when we talk about roadblocks, specifically when it comes to things such as creating an inclusive work environment or creating a place of psychological safety, first and foremost, work needs to be done on the leadership side. So whoever the leader is, take some time to make sure you're developing yourself so that you can handle these things. Do you personally have good interpersonal communication skills? Is there an issue with your tone or your body language, your facial expressions, your hand gestures, things of that nature? That's all self work that leaders can do to make sure they're setting up an environment so employees even feel comfortable bringing things to their attention. Are they a good active listener as a leader? Are you able to set goals to unify your team, bring them together for a common ground, and make sure you're fostering a cooperative work environment, clear goals, measurable, things of that nature moving forward? So that's all the background work that leaders can do. And of course, that includes conflict resolution, motivation, all those great things. But then once you get those things out of the way, and you as a leader, you've handled those things, and we talk about inclusive communities, educate your employees what you believe inclusivity looks like, so that when people are in the meeting, you're not noticing gender bias, where there are women speaking up in the meeting and presenting ideas, and there happen to be men that are over talking them, or a man brings up an idea 30 minutes after a woman has already brought up an idea, and everybody's like, oh yeah, let's jump on that bandwagon. Well, Carol said that 30 minutes ago, but now that Bob says it, everyone's on board. So making sure you're noticing that could be, a gender bias, it could be an age bias, it could be an ethnicity bias. Make sure as a leader you're noticing those type of things in your organization, and then you're course correcting as needed.
Absolutely. This hit home a little bit even with myself. I have 3 VAs that work for me. And girl, speaking about what we were just talking about, where, me working as an employee years ago and sitting on my throne of like, I could do this so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the role is reversed, really having that self-awareness of when individuals aren't showing up the way that I'm expecting them to show up, and then having the self-awareness to be able to say, is this me not explaining it correctly, not creating the flow correctly, not spending enough time creating a flow, expecting too much without enough explanation on things, and really having to, exactly what you said, that self-work it comes from the leadership.
And that's why it's so important to, number one, use your professional development dollars within your organization. So hopefully you work at an organization that does provide you a professional development budget. But even if they don't, as professionals, we need to invest in ourselves to make sure we're continuing to develop. So if you don't have it within your organization, find a way to get it outside of your organization, whether that's individual one-on-one coaching, group coaching, doing some work through volunteer organizations where you're getting this exposure and experience through the various, and also through the various different professional development associations that you may join. There's a plethora of ways to get the work done and develop. But number one, identify what you need to develop and then actively, purposefully work on it. Be intentional in doing the work.
This is amazing. You know, I hear about coaches who coach leadership, but until having this conversation with you, like, I overall was like, yeah, we should have that. But now listening to you and kind of dissecting what a need for the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because the majority of individuals have never done any personal development. So they're not even aware that there's other ways of being.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely. And, we're not even discussing the situations where individual contributors get put in a leadership role because they were a great individual contributor. Well, there's two complete different skill sets, being an individual contributor and being a leader. So we need to make sure we're developing those leadership skills. And there's a whole toolkit in what that looks like. Not you're leading the business, you're leading your people, you're leading initiatives. There's a lot of different things that fall under leadership. So make sure you're getting what you need, when you need it, and how you need it to move forward. And it's very personal. It's like your dentist. You really have to have a great relationship with your dentist for the relationship to work. So just because one coach didn't work or one platform or one initiative didn't, that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You figure out what works for you, how you like to work, and how you grow best in developing these leadership skills. And that's why it's so necessary to be in the driver's seat in making it work. So large organizations, they have LMS systems, learning management systems, and you can go in and you can take a training and do a portal and things of that nature. That might not be your jam, that you can learn some things from that, but that's just not your jam. And the individuals that I get to coach and work with one-on-one and in group settings, we actually do role plays. So they can come into a situation and they can say, hey, this is the scenario about what happened at work. Of course, everything's confidential, all of those things. But we talk about person A did this, person B did this. I was a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to do, how to handle this conflict. What should I have done? If it ever happens again, how can I step forward and really begin to role play and build language, especially around things concerning DEIB. I know a lot of people want to be compassionate and sensitive as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, but they don't necessarily have the language. So they may do or say something with an honest and sincere heart, but it's very offensive to someone else because they didn't have the language and they didn't know how to ask the individual, what's the appropriate language for this? And number one, are you even interested in having this conversation at all? So there's a lot of dynamics that go into this. But the biggest thing is be willing to do the work and get the support you need, whether that's coaching, reading a book, attending a seminar, whatever that looks like for you.
Yes. Such good information. I know that you talk often about techniques on how to manage a diverse team. Do you have a tip or two for us?
Yeah, one of the biggest things, active listening. Every team is different. So get to know your people, engage in active listening. Make sure that you're truly hearing what they're saying, not just the words, but the messages that they're trying to get across. And once you have an understanding of your team individually and collectively, you can then begin to design what's the best way for me to work with these group of professionals to get the best out of them, because it is a business here. We got to get the work done, to get the best out of them, get the best performance to move these business objectives. But still, while moving these business objectives, making sure that they're getting the personal development, they're getting the coaching, the support, the mentorship, the sponsorship, the allyship, whatever it is they need from you. And so in order to do that, it takes communication. And communication is a two-way street. You're speaking, they're speaking, you're coming to a understanding. So having regular one-on-one conversations with your team members that you're leading, understanding what's going on in the business, the projects that they're working on, how they're progressing on those things, but then also their overall development in the organization, exposure, connection, stretch assignments, cross-functional work, things of that nature. Keeping your finger on the pulse of those things will help your team grow and advance, as well as help you maintain a great relationship with your direct reports.
I like this idea of one-on-one meetings versus group meetings. And not that every single person in the organization should or needs a one-on-one, but leadership, I could see how that would be so beneficial, just short, right?
Definitely. And they're not exclusive of each other, either a one-on-one or a group meeting. They really you need both of them to be successful. Yeah. And it's just how you time them. And these one-on-ones, they don't have to be an exclusive one-on-one development meeting, And if you happen to be a leader that only speaks with your team members about professional development during performance review times, let's make a plan not to do that. We need to talk about development more than just annually in performance review times. So when we talk about those one-on-ones, the reality is, if you're doing them regularly, whatever the cadence is that makes sense with the business, if you have quarterly business reviews or whatever, every business functions differently, but pick a cadence that makes sense with how you're doing your business function. And those one-on-ones could be a quick 5 to 6 minutes in the beginning or the end of a business meeting. So it doesn't have to be, this is just the one-on-one and we're going to talk about my development. And now we have to I set up another meeting to talk about my progression in the project that I'm working on. No, that project update meeting you have, just take the first 5 minutes, talk about this is what you need, this is what you don't need, these are your roadblocks. Hey, I reached out to Bob, I haven't heard back from him. I need you to knock down some doors to get him to respond. Hey, I reached out to Amy. She's not being cooperative. Can you speak to someone that can speak to someone to help her get on board? Whatever it is that people need, make sure you're giving them that so that they can be successful in their role.
Absolutely. I like how you keep emphasizing that it's different for everybody. I think that is so important. And I think that even just hearing that, we have a ton of people watching live right now. I feel like just here, at least for me, it kind of lightens it a little bit, because I think so many times as humans, we feel as if there's like a cookie cutter. We're like, where's the manual for this thing that Ranada is talking about? And just kind of recognizing that, we can be unique in the way that we set this up, but the importance of setting it up.
Exactly. And a great thing about the coaching that I'm able to do when I work with individuals, when we work and we develop techniques and they're like, yeah, this is my jam, I got it, 2 thumbs up. And then they have a new person join their team, or they have a person that just experiences a life transition. And what happened once and what was working for them once no longer is getting them the results that they need. So it's important to be nimble. It's important to be willing to pivot. And most important, continue to learn and develop and build your skill set, because just because this works for your team in 2024 and everything is going well, you know, in 2025 or 2026, the dynamics could completely shift. So as a business, you know, as we continue to keep our finger on the pulse of the market and we follow what the consumers are doing and potential customers and new customer market groups that we want to gain, you know, we're constantly learning and evolving. As a leader, as a professional, you need to be constantly learning and evolving as well, because the people that you're going to work with and the situations that you're going to experience, they're going to continue to change. So it's not cookie cutter and it's not set in stone. So just be willing to be on that continuous journey as a lifelong learner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Psychological safety. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
Yeah. So when we talk about psychological safety, you know, how safe and comfortable does an individual feel coming into an environment as their a professional, authentic self? Now, I'm not talking about bedhead, wake up. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your professional, authentic self coming into that environment. Do you feel comfortable with your natural hair, whatever that means to you? Do you feel comfortable sharing what your pronouns are? Do you feel comfortable speaking up and sharing ideas? And a big thing, do you feel comfortable with raising objection to an idea or suggestion that has been made? So when we talk about psychological safety, it encompasses all of those things. So if you're a leader and you have a team that does not experience psychological safety, you know, they're concerned about their hair or their pronouns or this, that, and the other, you're really not getting the best out of that person, because they're exerting a certain amount of energy to hide what their true pronouns are, because they don't want people to know, because they're afraid of the backlash behind them. If it's a hair thing or whatever it is, you know, they're exerting a certain amount of energy to try to hide, to try to assimilate into what they believe is needed to be accepted and successful in that organization. And so because they're putting on this mask, because they're hiding, they're preoccupied with that. So you're not getting the best out of them. And it's not great for that individual. Stress, anxiety, everything that you could imagine that comes along with that. But it's not great for the team as well. You know, especially when it comes to bringing forth business ideas, bringing up objections, offering a different or opposing point of view. You know, the business could go down a path that causes them to lose a lot of money. And it's a possibility someone in the room could have known something from a past experience, from another organization they've worked in, from another community that they belong to, that says, hey, you know, we've done this, that, or the other and before. I've seen that. And these are some of the pitfalls. These are some of the things that you need to look out for. These are some of the things you need to consider. Or this is an alternative way to bypass those things. But if they don't feel comfortable speaking up, it's likely they'll let leadership go down that path, and they'll be fully aware that, hey, this is full of landmines and not a good situation. And the company could lose a lot of money.
I have a question, like our actual question.
Go right ahead.
From a personal experience that happened in a past position. I hired individuals, and recruiter. I was a recruiter. And it was for a door-to-door company. And one of the things that I was always very cognizant of, now mind you, this was back in 2000s,
Okay.
like 2007-ish. Okay. So nowhere close to where we are now. But I'm speaking in today's term, what would someone do in this situation? So I was always very cognizant back then of tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going door to door. People judge you within 1 second of you opening the door. And if you've got a bunch of tattoos, the probability of you being successful within that industry is very low. So I would have guys roll up their sleeves. It's in Florida, so it's really hot. Usually you're not going door to door with long sleeves on. Usually you start wearing short sleeves, which is fine, but I don't want a bunch of tattoos all over the place. So it only hire individuals, men and women, who had no visible tattoos on their legs, lower legs, or arms. Okay. Then sometimes they're with us, they end up getting a tattoo. If there's a rule or a standard of like dyeing your hair or certain makeup or tattoos of not doing a certain thing, we hire you as is because that's the standard. Usually you're not asking like, hey, are you planning on getting a big devil tattoo on your forearm at any point in your career here? How does one handle that? How does a leadership handle something like that? Or is it something we're not allowed to do anymore?
Yeah, well, what I've seen done within some organizations is that, that's part of their policy, their dress code, their professional standard. So if you happen to hire someone that doesn't have a tattoo, but then they do get one, then the expectation would be that they cover it, because the standard that this company has developed and stand by, and it's part of the company brand or whatever it is, our employees don't display visible tattoos. So in a situation like that, they would have to wear long sleeves. They would have to cover it. But then the bigger question that's one thing. That's looking at it down one path. The bigger question could be, are we as the company projecting our insecurities, our falsehoods onto others? Because the person on the other end that's opening the door, they could love tattoos, and that could be the reason why they open the door. Who's your target audience? Who are you attracting? Who are you going after? And is it a subset of those individuals that tend to like tattoos? Have you done any market research that said tattoos are taboo or things of that nature for this? And it depends on what you're selling. It depends on what you're selling and who you're selling to or things of that nature. So is it a possibility that these individuals with tattoos could be focused on this other segment that would welcome tattoos, and it could possibly be a point of connection and things of that nature? We just have to make sure that we aren't jumping the gun and making a lot of assumptions, because the only way we know that is if we get out and we talk to our potential customers to figure out what's right for them and what they want.
Okay. I love that. And that actually, I see now that you're saying that, there have been companies, shopping, restaurants where I go to, and people will have their tattoos covered. Or they'll have like one on their face and they'll have like a Band-Aid over it, like all the time. I never really thought of it as that might be company policy, where you can't show a tattoo, you have to have it covered.
Correct. And so once again, we're back to where we started in the beginning. It's truly is specific to that organization. So make sure you're making the right decisions for your organization, and not just doing what someone else did.
Totally. Yeah, because obviously the restaurant would be like, there's a difference between a bar restaurant and like a high-end,
White
a
tablecloth
high
type
end.
thing.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be two totally different waiters or waitresses that would be working there. So yeah, it would depend on the customer, totally
Absolutely.
atmosphere. Very, very awesome. Thank you so much for jumping into that. As we start to wrap up here, we have a ton of people watching live. They're obviously resonating with what you're saying. I would love for you to tell us exactly what you do, which I know we're getting a really good idea of what it is. But who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help?
Absolutely. So I help not only organizations, but individual professionals. So, individual professionals that might need some coaching and development as it relates to leadership, um, as it relates to team dynamics and efficiency, and then also their own professional development and advancement. How do I make the next step in my career? So, providing them coaching and training on how to do that. So that's at the individual level. But then also at the business or the corporate level, I help leaders as it relates to things concerning retention, workforce planning and development, developing professional development plans for the organization as a whole, and culture and inclusivity work. So those are more enterprise levels. So wherever you are, if you need support as an individual or you need support within your organization, more than likely I can be able to offer you a service or direct you to someone who can.
Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, see more about you?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I am on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so definitely follow me there. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those places. So you can follow me there. Somewhere in this segment, I'm sure there will be a link to my website, so you can definitely click on that and schedule some time to speak with me one-on-one, and we can chat about any challenges that you may be having and how I can support you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight. For those of you listening live or on the replay, Ranada can be found predominantly on LinkedIn, as she said. And then there is a clickable link in the description below wherever you are watching us at. Feel free to click that link and connect with her directly. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up? This was great.
Yes, yes. My closing thought would be continue to do the hard work, the things that are challenging, the things that rub you a little bit, the things that make you grind your teeth. Continue to do that hard work because eventually it will get easier, but don't do it alone. Get the support that you need in order to be a success.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ranada. This was fabulous. So much wisdom, so much inspiration for us leaders on how to level up.
Yes.
How to level up. Some great, great nuggets that you gave to us here. So thank you so much. For those of you listening live or on the replay, make sure you follow, like, share. Once again, I am your host here, Sabrina Victoria. I invite you to join our amazing community here, Her Nation, where we continue to have amazing conversations like this to help us lift each other up and really inspire each other to do better, to do better. So until next time, do something awesome today. Much love. Thank you, Renata.
You're welcome. Goodbye.